South Carolina legislative session is over for the 2019 season. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down exclusively with Dr. Gibbs Knotts of the College of Charleston to talk about what's next for South Carolina. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and, of course, download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Dr. Gibbs Knotts.
Good to see you.
Oh, likewise.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, the South Carolina General Assembly just concluded for the year.
Right.
And obviously, you're the chair of the Political Science Department here at the College of Charleston. If you could write a research paper about this year's legislative session, what would the title be?
Missed opportunities, I think, a lot. You know, I really thought education reform was going to happen. I really thought, given the article in the series in the Post and Courier and the focus on education reform, and we obviously just saw the Teachers March,
right.
And I think there's a chance to get a few things done, but that big comprehensive package looks like it may be next year before something like that. So certainly that was a big issue, and then just the continued fallout from Santee Cooper and the nuclear debacle. You know, what to do,
right.
What steps to go forward, how to figure all that out. And so, you know, there were some high points, but certainly those were things that I think I would have liked to have seen completed.
Matter of fact, let me take you to WJCL's website. The headline reads this: the 2019 South Carolina General Assembly is over. Here's what's left on the table. And as you just mentioned, they said this quote: despite recent, I just missed it. They basically said, listen, you know, despite the teacher rally,
right.
this particular bill, as you just mentioned, is going to be left until next year.
Right.
And I know that they want a resolution for this. What should the resolution be for the Democrats, and what should be the legislation for the resolution that is for the Republicans?
I think everybody knows a teacher that's had an impact on them. You know, support for teachers and support for publication. Public education shouldn't be a Democratic issue. It shouldn't be a Republican issue. And I think there were really only Democrats that were out speaking at the rally. Some Republicans did make statements. Governor McMaster said he was frustrated with the situation and had hoped for some kind of resolution. So, I mean, I think they both have to come together. I think Democrats, they were more active and seemed to have more support from the grassroots organization that formed. But again, I think it's also about just respecting the profession more. I mean, I think, you know, certainly teachers would like more money. They'd like more control of their classrooms. They'd like less testing.
Right.
But there's also just a level of respect for the very important work that's done. And, you know, hopefully, you know, you don't need to be a Republican or a Democrat to do that.
And matter of fact, the article goes on to say this: lawmakers have reiterated throughout the 2019 General Assembly that education is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, priorities for South Carolina. So why wasn't this a priority on the last day, yesterday?
You know, I think they just ran out of time, and I think there was some opposition to some of the proposal from the teachers. I mean, I think it was difficult. You know, it was like they felt like the teachers group didn't feel like they had enough input, but the speaker, Jay Lucas, was saying that he did go out and hold hearings.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it's difficult. You know, teachers aren't going to get everything they want. Democrats certainly aren't going to get everything they want. They're in the minority party, but, you know, coming up with something folks can live with and figuring out what's the right raise amount. I think there is going to be a raise, but it may fall short of the sort of the amount that would be necessary to pull South Carolina up to kind of the average of the states in the South. I think that's one of the things they asked for.
Right.
I think they're going to reduce some of the testing, so there's going to be a little less testing going on, a little less standardized testing.
Sure.
So, but it's just they couldn't get together and get that big package because there's just so many competing interests, and it also takes money.
And a lot of another issue, Albert, that is a lot of people are talking to me about is this particular bill, and obviously it's just going to be tabled to next year as well, and that is South Carolina's fetal heartbeat bill,
right?
Heartbeat bill, that is a bill that would prevent doctors from performing an abortion if a heartbeat is detected in a mother's womb. When you look back at that bill to right now, what still plays in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think and this is South Carolina's following suit from some other states as well. And I mean, this is an issue that, you know, there's been a restriction of abortion rights in places like South Carolina. Roe v. Wade,
right.
the landmark Supreme Court decision, is still the law of the land, but states can put restrictions, they can put waiting periods, they can require certain procedures before, and so South Carolina's done some of that. It's not the most restrictive, but there are, and this is just another example of, you know, a big victory if it were to occur for the pro-life folks.
Okay.
But for folks that are supportive of pro-choice and women's rights in this area, it would have been a big setback. And so, it's one of those things. I sort of feel like South Carolina, it is a conservative state, but it is not the most conservative state. And there's that balance of kind of middle of the road folks that I think were able to block some of this in this case.
Can I stop there? You said South Carolina is probably one of the most conservative states around.
Okay.
Obviously, you see the election of Joe Cunningham
right.
and a lot of Democratic victories around Charleston and beyond.
Right.
How long will it take before South Carolina become a blue state?
Well, that's a great question. That's the question we're all trying to figure out. Is what happened in the first district, is what happened in Cunningham, is that a precursor for what we could expect statewide? Obviously Charleston's a little bit different, and that was a special type of situation that happened. But yeah, for me, Quintin, it's always, I'm thinking, South Carolina. Is it more like Mississippi and Alabama, and is it kind of more on the conservative end, or is it going to go the way of maybe a Virginia or North Carolina, where those states are more competitive, certainly at the presidential level?
Sure.
And so, who knows for sure? We're going to see certainly Lindsey Graham's up for re-election. Right. Jamie Harrison is likely to challenge him on the Democratic side. He's a high-quality Democratic candidate. He works now for the National Democratic Party. He's the type of person that if he can raise money, if he can get his message out, he could be somebody who could be competitive. But again, as we saw in Georgia with Stacey Abrams losing, Andrew Gillum losing in Florida, these states it's hard for Democrats to win statewide. It's possible in a congressional district if things go really well. You get a well-funded, dynamic candidate like Joe Cunningham. He had the benefit of not having to run against the incumbent in Mark Sanford, but he got to run against Katie Arrington, who was a little further to the right than Mark Sanford. So, the real question, the real thing we've got to figure out is South Carolina going to eventually be like the first district? I think we've got a ways to go. I think this is still a Republican state. It's still a center-right state, but, the right Democrat, I think, can win.
The Carolina Panthers. The Senate approved giving more than $100 million tax breaks to the Carolina Panthers in hopes of having them build their new headquarters in York County, South Carolina, with plans to build in Rock Hill, that is. The new headquarters and practice facility would be just 15 minutes south of Charlotte.
Yeah.
There has been opposition on both the Republicans and Democrats on this. Why?
Well, and part of it is just this whole notion of how much do we want to spend state tax dollars or provide incentives to billion-dollar operations, and so there would be a lot of benefits, but it is a difficult decision that politicians have to make when they attract, whether it's Boeing or Volvo or somebody like that. One proposal was that the Panthers had to play a couple of their home games in South Carolina, which I don't think is going to go anywhere in order to have this. But, the Panthers had certainly a connection to Wofford for a while. Right. And, it's not the North Carolina Panthers, it's the Carolina Panthers. Of course, they play in Charlotte, but, it would be a good opportunity for South Carolina. But it's up to the elected officials to decide, okay, how much tax breaks, how much incentives are we going to put on the table to get this group to come, and does the sort of math work out? Is it going to be something that's going to have enough of a benefit to the state of South Carolina to outlay some money or to provide some breaks to them?
And let me get back to Santee Cooper.
Yeah.
A lot of people have questions about this still to this day. What more questions do you hear about from the Democratic as well as the Republican side?
Yeah, anybody just go to Monk's Corner and see how big of a deal Santee Cooper is. Of course, you've got the lakes that are great with Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion. I'm up there fishing. I like to fish a lot in the Cooper River below the lakes. But I tell you, it is just such a big part of South Carolina, especially a big part of the Low Country. And with this nuclear project that just really went under and all this money was spent, since it's state-owned, they're trying to figure out what to do. Who's going to have that debt? It's got some, I'm sure, very attractive assets. I'd suspect, we don't know for sure who's going to ultimately end up purchasing them if anybody does, but I would think Dominion, the Southern Company, Duke Power would all have at least thought about it. But it's a group that touches a lot of people in South Carolina. You certainly don't want to see people's rates go through the roof, but you also have to figure out what do you do when you have this big of a business failure with these nuclear reactors. And certainly Santee Cooper wasn't the only entity that was involved, but they were a key partner with SCE&G. So.
And another talk right now is about Larry Grooms and his votes for Santee Cooper.
Yeah, right, because he's right up there, so he's got to think about, all those people that depend on that particular entity, right?
And when you look at his race in 2020, what do you see now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who's going to for sure challenge him. I mean, again, Republicans are pretty safe. The way the districts have been drawn is that, Democrats are pretty safe in their districts, Republicans are pretty safe in their district. He's somebody who's got name recognition. But yeah, that's the type of issue that if he was to make a lot of people mad or was to look like he wasn't on the right side of his constituents, he'd have to be careful.
And the WJCL article goes on to say this. The latest state records online say that the 123rd General Assembly only passed 39 bills.
Yeah, that's why I came back to that missed opportunities. Yeah, I mean, we're a legislatively powerful state. I mean, really, for anything to get done, the legislature has to act. And it's kind of strange because you've got Republicans in charge of the governorship,
right,
the South Carolina House, and the
right,
South Carolina Senate.
Right.
But, just because they're of the same party, there are certainly divisions within the Republican Party, and certain people don't get along with certain people, and certain people hold a lot of power. And it's a state that doesn't like to see really any type of increase taxes. And so, that's going to limit a little bit on what you can do. You can't say, well, we want to do a new program, and then the next question is going to be, how are you going to pay for that? And so that probably limits a little bit. But, that seems like, I don't know back historically, but that seems like a pretty low number of things to have passed.
When we fast forward to January, what can we expect from the South Carolina General Assembly in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously a lot of attention is going to be on 2020. The South Carolina primary is going to be February 29th. Right. And so I think people will have presidential fever on their hands a little bit. I'm looking to see if there's going to be a Republican primary. Okay. We know there's going to be a Democratic primary. Right. But I think returning to education and trying to get that fixed, I mean, I think that's a crucial. I mean, I think they made some headway with the gas tax and roads a few years back, but education and really linking education and education reform to economic development, something that, is so important to our state and continuing to grow and really making that case that if we want to have a strong economy, we've got to have strong schools. I just think that that's going to eventually get folks in Columbia to pass some stuff and make some fixes in that area.
I don't want to neglect this at all, but let me get back to the presidential election right now. Obviously, a slew of Democratic candidates have already come through this particular area. What is the one person that still plays in your mind right now?
Probably Kamala Harris, I think, in a lot of ways. I just think that, I've seen a few of the rallies already. I saw Kamala Harris, I saw Pete Buttigieg, I saw Beto O'Rourke, I saw Bernie Sanders. But, her ability to attract a diverse crowd was really impressive. And in South Carolina, on the Democratic side, back in 2016, if the past is any prediction, probably 60 to 65% of voters are going to be African American. And so Kamala Harris, I think, when I looked at her crowd and saw who was supporting her and saw her sorority sisters and the people that were out there, I think she's going to do really well with South Carolina's African American voters. What's different, though, is we've got two African Americans in the race, Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. We've also got 20 candidates. And so not only is it a more diverse field, it's a very big field. And so what's happened in the past may not always, but look back to 2008. You got Barack Obama versus Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama had just barely been in the United States Senate. Very dynamic African-American candidate against Hillary Clinton, who had a lot of connections in the Democratic Party, but really Obama was able to do very well against Clinton in 2008. I sort of think of Biden as kind of like a Hillary Clinton. Okay, he's somebody who is Mr. Democrat, but he's going to have to face, certainly Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and a whole slew of people in South Carolina.
When you look at those polls, where is Biden? Where's Harris? Where's Booker?
Yeah, so, I'm really looking forward to the Winthrop poll when they start to do some polling in South Carolina. When you look at the national polls, though, Biden is way up. And I think it's partly name recognition. It's partly that people think he has the best chance of beating Trump. He's the heir apparent in a lot of ways to Barack Obama being his VP for 8 years. Bernie just has that really passionate group that seems to want to stay with him, and so I think those two are up pretty high. And Buttigieg is getting a lot of lot of media attention right now. I mean, I was at North Charleston High School last week, and it was packed in there with people to see Mayor Pete. But I think Harris probably, of the senators, of the people, has a lot of people excited. She's dynamic. She's got experience, but she's still on the young side. So I think she can attract some of those newer folks to the electorate. So I sort of feel like she's a person that I think will do real well in this state. But it's still early. But it is a great opportunity. I will say, almost no matter what your politics are, if you want to see history made, just check out some of these candidates. I mean, you're not going to get turned away if you're out there and you want to go see a presidential candidate. They're coming to South Carolina pretty much every weekend these days, so it's really, really fun to go see them. And I've got a book out about the South.
Right.
It's coming out in November with the University of South Carolina Press, called First in the South. And so, for book sales purposes only, I'd like to see a Republican and a Democratic primary. That's twice the number of people that can buy our book.
Okay.
I wrote it with Jordan Ragusa here in the department. But slightly kidding aside, we just don't know what's going to happen on the Republican side. If somebody challenges Trump, maybe beyond Bill Weld, maybe the Maryland governor, South Carolina Republicans have to decide whether or not to hold a primary. I think they'll make that decision this summer, because it's possible Trump will have a challenger or two, but South Carolina doesn't want to, dignify that, so they won't end up having a primary. I personally think that if there's a credible challenger, it'd be good for South Carolina Republicans to hold a primary to give people a chance to weigh in. And it could be that, if this is a pro-Trump state, then Trump voters will come out and give Trump a boost to sort of beat down any competition. I mean, that happened back in 1992 when George H.W. Bush was the incumbent.
Right.
He got challenged from David Duke and Pat Buchanan. There was a South Carolina primary, and South Carolinians said, hey, we like our president, don't challenge him, and it really kind of shut some of those other candidacies down. So, to be determined on the Republican side, but we know we're having a Democratic primary. It's on the leap day, too. I think it's February 29th.
Wow.
So that extra day we get every 4 years is when the South Carolina primary, Saturday, February 29th, 2020. So, and it's open. That's the thing about South Carolina, too, is that you can vote. You don't have to be registered if you want to go vote. You can't vote in both primaries, but if you want to go vote, even if you might have voted Republican your whole life, you're allowed to go vote if you happen to like Pete Buttigieg or Beto or Kamala or Elizabeth Warren. They're out there.
Well, to be continued.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Dr. Gibbs Knotts, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate
I always
this.
enjoy talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you.